What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the sixth album by rapper R.U.L.E. Basically this project is called R.U.L.E. and it came out in the fall of 2004. So this is an acronym for the rule as to the part of R.U.L.E.'s name. Not sure what the R.U.L.E. stands for within the pitch behind it. I think it might actually be something that has like a commonplace acronym like Notorious B.I.G. Might be overthinking that particular concept, but either way, I think it's within the pitch. It's an interesting type pitch. Kind of get this here because it's strange to kind of have an acronym type album within the pitch of it not standing for something, but still some good type fare here to kind of get. I would say within the pitch. I don't know. It's just kind of the concept. I mean, Snoop Dogg has done this too. He's done this with like Snoop D-O double G, some of those type pitches. So it's just within the time. But I look after here. This is a solid. This is a real excellent type album to kind of get here within those fashions. The vast majority of the songs on this particular album I recommend pretty full blown within the pitch. So it definitely has some excellent type of appeal. R.U.L.E. is pretty large, like in the early 2000s pitches like that. Particularly, he would get like a number of hits with like the singer Ashanti pitches like that. He had like the Murder Inc. kind of movement with that particular label, some of those type fares. But the one particular thing that was pretty notable about R.U.L.E. throughout the 2000s, the early mid 2000s, was his particular beef and clashes with 50 Cent and the Aftermath label, folks like Eminem, Dr. Dre, some of those type folks within the pitch. That was a particular thing, particularly around 2003. It just seemed like 50 Cent, for the most part, folks kind of felt like he was the more predominant one than those fashions. But R.U.L.E. did last a little bit lengthier. R.U.L.E. did last a little bit lengthier within the pitch behind it. This is an album like the previous album, Blood in My Eye from 2003, was kind of seen as like maybe like a minor setback. I'm going to get to that album eventually, but within the pitch, that was an album that kind of had like a here and there type approach compared to like how dominant he was in 2002 before 50 Cent was kind of on the scene. But I look after here, this is like prime delights of this is further prime era by R.U.L.E. as far as what's first going to happen. Had a couple top 20 singles and got to the third single with some pretty big deals within the fashion, especially like the commercial pop rap kind of appeal of it. But this is like the real last notable album within the pitch before R.U.L.E. kind of fell out of like the commercial spotlight. This is one that was post the 50 Cent beef that kind of kept him in like the public eye, but it's just kind of the pitch that he did drop like a greatest hits album or something like that called Exodus in 2005, but that one didn't catch on as much. And then really R.U.L.E. did not drop ever really another album. He was gonna, I do remember like back in 2007, he was gonna put out an album called The Mirror, but that got kind of scrapped, and this maybe it became a mixtape, something like that, but it just never really happened. He put out like a song with Lil Wayne. It was around the time when Lil Wayne got arrested in 2007, so in the pitch, I do remember the production fair like The Mirror kind of almost happening, but he did not drop another album until 2012, and that was virtually it. I mean, maybe R.U.L.E.'s dropped an album since then, but it's just kind of within the pitch as far as saying, it's just kind of the concept that within the pitch, like Murder Inc. kind of had like some racketeering or some sort of label problems with the law as far as this pitch can happen between R.U.L.E. and then R.U.L.E. having some problems within the pitch, like in early 2006, late 2005. Ashanti kind of quit being as predominant around 2005, so it's just within the pitch, just like the last gas of that. Lloyd was a part of this particular label, so Lloyd, Ashanti, R.U.L.E. had some pop rap type hits that were pretty huge, and this is just another excessively good type one. It's the last batch of like some good type stuff from like an era. This feels, it's not to say that this album's like a full bound kind of end of an era, but this within the pitch is definitely like one of the last stretches, like the predominance that R.U.L.E. had since at least 1999 with Veni Vidi Vici as far as those pitches can have. So it's just within time I look after it, but number of those hits, just some of those type ones, and you think of Pain is Love, and you think of like his 2002 album, I think Last Temptation, something like that. I don't remember if it's full bound. I need to get to some more of these type ones. Rule 336 as far as those fairs can have, just a bunch of these in the pitch, but it's just some good type fashions. This is like an arguable kind of classic within the pitch. It's not going to get like a 9 or 10 out of 10, but it's going to get pretty damn close within the fair behind this within the aspect I made. Saying the recommendation of the songs on here, I would say within the pitch as far as saying that basically 10.5 out of 14 songs I wound up recommending on here, including all the singles. It's a good type pitch, but the main fashion just about is just the fact that apart from like the song New York, which is a really excellent street single, it's a good type fashion. I remember The Game being on like one of the remixes of that song, but the real fashion about this, R.U.L.E. just does not nail as many street type songs. He still has like the Tupac type for song. One thing about R.U.L.E. is he was pretty similar to Tupac. He harnessed like Tupac's particular thug life type energy from 1996 to 1994. But within this particular album, it's on here a little bit, not as much as it was on Pain is Love and like the early 2000s kind of albums, but it's just within the pitch as far as saying that these more thuggish type songs and a more kind of NY type flavor just don't hit as full bound within the pitch. Not to say that they don't have the ability, but it just seems like the concept that just getting like a particular song like you would think from R.U.L.E., something that would have been like some of these songs like Gun Talk on here and other ones like Last of the Mohicans just don't work as full bound kind of within the length of it as far as the pitch kind of happens. Just kind of the tone. I mean, definitely say that New York is a blissful type one. That's one of Ja Rule's career highlights and his overall best songs within the pitch. It just doesn't have as many full bound follows. So we'll get to that particular fashion. You'll see what I'm talking about as we get to the review. But just to say, there were 3 huge singles off this album. So Ja Rule was back in the spotlight, despite the fact that people thought he was down and out after the 50 Cent beef from 2003. He did manage to get back in the spotlight with the top 5 single or something like that within those relative pitches. So wonderful. This has R. Kelly along, who helps out with the hook, and then Ashanti's on this song. So typical kind of Ja Rule Ashanti team. It was just an overall classic song within the early 2000s type fare. Wonderful. It's like a summer fried kind of city outings. I'd have to say just a basic kind of usual neighborhood romp. I'd have to say here within the pitch behind it. This hooky kind of club bounce within the pitch behind it. So it's good type tone. This typical kind of Ja Rule. Just a more recent hit from him as far as those fares can happen. Just something that's fresh and just within the mind is still saying that Ja Rule, something that's still fresh and within the mind as far as saying that Ja Rule still has some hits post like the 50 Cent beef as far as those fares can happen. Now he probably could have used at least 1 or 2 more hits or 2 or 3 more hits within that fashion to be able to have that particular proven fact just a little bit further, but within the concept of this is still a good luck that he still managed to get some hits past like the point of the seeming when folks were maybe going different ways, thinking that time was up for him. So a good type 1 for that. Shanti nails this particularly well, as does R. Kelly. Just real classic highlight here. And that's the thing about it. The thing about this particular album is it's kind of city type fashion, but this does in a more neighborhood type flavor. Not as much like out in the city streets, kind of more cruise arounds within the pitch. Not like it doesn't have cruise arounds, but just kind of the concept that there's some ones on here like Wonderful and Caught Up and The Manual and Get It Started and Where I'm From, some of these type of one, or Get It Started, and like there's another one on here like What's My Name, some of these type ones that just feel like more neighborhood kind of backyard type fun type sessions within a concept of just more localized type fare in like a big city. So it's good type concept, getting some of that residential type bops within the pitch. There's an example of that. It's good big city type summer moments. New York's the second single, and this is more vintage kind of New York, more that New York kind of grime. This is a good concept. This as far as those fares can happen. This is like the sort of stuff that like you would say folks like 50 Cent, Fat Joe, Jadakiss, some of those type folks were doing from like the NY, Mobb Deep, a lot of these type folks. This just feels like a staple of like a New York anthem. Probably one of the bigger songs I can think out of New York that just has like that classic kind of hit type appeal between like 2000 and 2004, the first half of the 2000s decade. So it's a good type of appeal for that. Like I was saying, this like classic kind of 2000s New York anthem. It's like a classic kind of 2000s New York anthem kind of get here. Just a glissy kind of venue noise. So definitely would feel like within that. Good song to get crunk, big shaker appeal within this particular song, I'd have to say. So this kind of an excellent posse song within some of those type pitches. Just the tone as far as getting like the set off within some of that type fare. Just a good blitzer within the concept of it. Jadakiss and Fat Joe back up this particular song is just an overall highlight. But this is another one that kind of reignited the beef with 50 Cent as far as those pairs can happen. So it's just from the pitch that this was just particular some of that sort of beef movement within like the mid 2000s, but it's a good type anthem. Be able to get some of that type of appeal. I want to say it had to do with this particular song as to the reason why the game wound up leaving G. I want to say this song had to do with some of the reasons as to why the game wound up leaving G Unit back in like the mid 2000s, just because of the fashion that he did make a remix to this and was kind of messing with some of the rappers that 50 Cent didn't want him to. So it's just from the pitch as far as those first can happen. But this is an excellent song to be able to say that. So it's a good type of appeal. Caught Up is the third single. This has Lloyd on the hook, and then he was kind of being introduced on the scene around this time. He was going to be like the male kind of Ashanti as far as this pitch can happen. Murder Inc. was pretty good again, like these particular R&B singers, pop rap type singers within the pitch. So it just had some good type of appeal. Real nice bop of a single here. This one didn't catch on as full bound compared to the first two, but still a good nice one. Just a good third single. This within the pitch is saying that Ja Rule, you would think considering the shifting of the tides around that time that Ja Rule wouldn't have been able to get to the third single, but he did, and it's some pretty good fare. So this is Caught Up is like a routine kind of neighborhood conduct that I had to say here, just basic bitch kind of day crawl that I'd say, just particular chica that are just more Starbucks type women pitches like that, standard Target girl, Starbucks type girl within the pitch behind this day crawls within that fashion of that particular aspect. This typical Tuesday, Wednesday type music, good snack run and lazy usuals within the pitch as far as those pairs can happen. Just kind of the concept of this, this typical kind of day fare within the sense as far as that particular fashion kind of goes. Not as much kind of within the pitch of like more night house pitches like that, just going out for glitz and glamours within that particular fare, but just kind of within a big city type sense, just some neighborhood conduct just amongst that, just kind of bay nearby within the particular fare, just like day, the simple kind of day crawls within the fashion of it, just a little bit more dredge within a sense, just more usual fare. So it's a good type fashion for that. But some of these songs on here, so basically the only 3 songs I don't recommend off this particular album would just be Last of the Mohicans, Gun Talk, and then Passion. which basically these three particular songs, at least the two songs that are kind of more rugged type fashion, like I was saying, Ja Rule just does not pull off these songs nearly as well in this particular album. Apart from the song New York, I feel like he needed that particular spice and just sharpness to that particular song, but this is not harnessed on this particular album. I just would say within fashion, I don't know if it's just because he was kind of thrown out of whack by the 50 Cent beat, but this is kind of the fashion. I just feel like the pitch, like DMX didn't have this problem with getting some of these type hits. When you think of like those songs that he did with Swizz Beatz off of his 2003 album, like Get It on the Floor, some of those type pitches, he just needed like a New York kind of rumbler, something like the song New York, but just without a posse song within the pitch. But I just feel like some of these type ones, like some of these posse type songs, Last of the Mohicans and like Gun Talk, just didn't nail that particular appeal as well. And then Passion was just kind of an awkward one. I don't know why this song was 8.5 minutes. I just looked within the appeal. It just kind of felt like a kind of extraneous type song. Just didn't really see too much of like the flair behind that particular one. Just didn't have a lot of good gloss about it or real catchiness. And then About My Business was the almost song. It's a good type one to kind of get here within the pitch. I'll talk about this one. To be honest, it's like a good junkyard and city outback kind of trudging to kind of get here. Just some snack run, kind of homie smoke sesh type music going to get within those tones. It's a good song to frat to as far as this pitch going to happen. It's basically one of those type ones, just neighborhood Jones, just from the pitch, just more kind of out back and about within like the city type fare, just kind of more usual kind of trudging and day fare within the pitch behind it. It's not quite as full bound makeshift, just amidst like the cycle of like typical worship, but just within the pitch, it is kind of like typical in between type moments of just figuring out some conducts of just like extra time pitches like that. Just when I'm talking about, I look after it, it's just kind of like, I feel like this is an almost song. This is a good enough song within the pitch, but I just look after here just the commonplace of listening to it within the full boundness. If you're not really, it's just a little bit more of a social and traverse type song. So if you're not just more amidst like the neighborhood going for like snack runs, pitches like that, or just having like some smoke sessions within some of the stuff there, it's just not as hitting. It's just within the pitch, but it's better than it isn't within the pitch. Now I'd say it's not a recommendable song. It's just kind of the commonplace of just where to listen to it. So it's just within the fashion. But see, I would say basically a 10.5 out of 14 on here. I'm gonna give this album like an 8.5 out of 10. I would feel like, because it would get like an 8.25 if it had been to the fashion of just having less kind of accommodations to About My Business. But I feel like because that's actually a good song, it's just more the fashion and just more personal type conduct of not listening to it as much. I feel like it's gonna get an 8.5 out of 10. It's just from the pitch as far as saying it's right on the cusp of being a 9. Some good type fare. I just feel like 11 out of 14 probably would have been like an 8.75 light 9, something like that. But it's just from the pitch as far as saying it's still a little bit distant from classic score of 13 or 14 out of 14. So it's just in the pitch as far as saying. But yeah, plenty of these songs in it. It's a pretty beefy type album within the aspect of just nailing a lot of these particular vibes. About nailing a lot of these particular vibes. Ja Rule has a lot of good just city hop type ones on here, just in a neighborhood type fashion. Like I was saying, some good buzz starters, party starters, kickoffs, and like neighborhood sense pitches like that. Some good ladies type songs within fashion, some makeshift songs, some of those type fares. So particular one that just feels really ripped out of like 2004, that just feels like more of just like Ja Rule back when he was in his prime. Is the song R.U.L.E. It's like a basic kind of dramatic New York kind of paranoia, I'd have to say here. Just reminds me of like Tupac and DMX, I'd say within the fashion. Just the kind of thug paranoia of Tupac with like the more New York kind of paranoia of DMX. It's like some quick living kind of outs kind of get here. So I mean, it's quick living for 2004, 2005. It's just in the pitch as far as saying it just feels really dated. It's not to say I still recommend this song within a particular pitch, but just the concept of like the paranoia that you would feel when this song was more lively, just is to be a little bit noticed within the pitch, but still a pretty excellent song within the fare. Just takes it back to like 2004, 2005, good type fare. Probably one of the best songs of this album is Never Thought. Now, it doesn't say that it has Ashanti on here, but I think that's who's on this, the chick that's on this particular song that helps out with the hook. It's like an album standout, I definitely have to say here. Just hella hooky and vibey, kind of day after hours smoke to kind of get within those fashions. Just good type fare, and by smoke I mean just more sultry kind of smoke within the fashion behind it. Just like some good ballad drama as far as those fares we're kind of having with this. It's just good type tone, just caught up within the fashion. Goes great with songs like Caught Up, just a little bit more evening haze, just from the aspect as far as those fares gonna have with this. It's good type fare. I kind of feel like Ja Rule was like Drake before. I kind of feel like Ja Rule was the Drake before Drake particularly came out in like the 2010s. He was basically like the Drake just with getting like these pop rap and kind of more female written type songs within pitch back between like the first half of the 2000s, late 90s, some of that type fare is a good type fashion, because most of the hitting songs in this particular album, apart from like some of the Tupac type moments, would have to be more like these kind of more pop rap and just more R&B flavor type songs. I mean, there's a number of these: Wonderful, Caught Up, The Manual, Where I'm From, or not Where I'm, Get It Started, What's My Name, Never Thought. Some of these type ones, at least about approximately half the album has some of these particular type ones. But Some good type fashion, get these. It's good type fair, just kind of the concept. But if you do need more songs, like one of the album standouts, New York, just doesn't have it in its full bound of fashion. But just to say that is pretty excellent song. So it's just within the pitch. But a real nice one that just harnesses like a Tupac song and Life Goes On. It's basically Ja Rule's Life Goes On. It's a pretty nice one as well. It's like a good Tupac style kind of flavor in it. I'd say just a New York version of like a homies tribute to kind of get here. Basically just like the one from Tupac's '96 album, and this good song to ruminate to within the pitch. So just good thug just good thug afterthoughts within the pitch behind it. Just summer type flair, just within a more big city type fashion, just within the tone. Typical type conduct to that. It's good to get good sequels to that particular fashion as far as those fairs can have a good flair for that particular stuff. I'd say the manual is a nice one here. This is the same sort of light licked rumination I had to say as Life Goes On, just a more satiny kind of day pusher to say. So this is just one, has that rumination just within a thug love type passion. This particular song has that rumination just in a more thug passion type aspect. Just songs like Thug Passion and trying to think of another one, like I forget some of these type of songs, like probably say like Thug Passion, I Want to Be a Nigga from the All Eyes on Me album from '96 as far as those fairs can happen. So it's a good type pitch for that as far as that particularly gonna go. Just real light lick type song within the fashion behind it. It's a good type conduct to just like a little bit of makeshift push within the concept of it. Just breezy kind of rumination within the fashion, just like a typical kind of dewy summer day within the fashion, how as to how that particular kind of goes with it. It's real nice conduct to some of that type fair. It just feels like probably Run the Streets, like probably Ja Rule's version, like a song like Run the Streets or Rather Be or Wanna Be a Nigga, one of those type, like Run the Streets or Rather Be a Nigga, some of those type ones just in the tone. It's good type fashion. There's two songs on here that are pretty similar. Basically, Get It Started and What's My Name are basically, there's two songs that are pretty similar in fashion. Both these songs, Get It Started and What's My Name, are just more backyard cookout type fair in a big city type sense. So Get It Started is like a backyard shindig in like a big city sense, like I was saying, just cookout fun to definitely get here, just a barbecue and kind of summer noise kind of get within some of those type fashions. So just basic kind of hangout type fair, just residential bound, not so much amidst like the city weaving pitches like that, just kind of on more snack runs, but just more within the fashion, just having the shindig at your spot and your pad as far as those fairs kind of having just good type tone for some of that particular kickback. It's kind of basic kind of backyard kind of noise, some of that type fashion. It's interesting type pitch. It's not a ton of folks. Like I can't commonly think. It's just interesting. Ja Rule chose like the more residential type fashion because it's not something that Jadakiss or Styles P or Fat Joe, some of those particular folks kind of did. So it's good type fashion that Ja Rule actually brought you by a spot as far as those fairs kind of happen. But it's the same thing with What's My Name. It's like a good buzz single and more stock kind of backyard city noise kind of get here. It just goes with Get It Started as far as those fairs kind of happen. So it's good type pitch for some of these residential type ones, but almost say kind of poolside kind of kick off type ones within a summer type sense. But just the fashion kind of makes some of that noise. So typical type fashions for that. Where I'm from is like a good makeshift type one. Here is like a glazed and jury kind of makeshift day drifting. I had to say just work a day kind of after moments, just from the pitch behind a good song for like a relative drive as far as this pitch can have. So just basic conduct is kind of one within a more blue collar kind of work a day type fashion. Just looking after it. It's kind of looking after it for like a more steadfast type fashion within the tone behind it. So it's just within the aspect as far as saying it just has like the typical kind of day push. So it's just a little bit more composed type one with the differential type pitch, probably just like Life Goes On, some of those type fashions, just without the thug living of it within the fashion behind it. Just more makeshift or relative hustlers makeshift within the pitch. So it's just good type tone for that. But yeah, I think I talked about every song on here. I know this album pretty well within the pitch. I've listened to this album plenty in the past. So I know this particular album to be able to speed through it a little bit quicker within the fair behind it. So I know virtually pretty well about this album. It's a pretty good pitch for that. So yeah, this album gets an 8.5 out of 10. I'd have to say here, plenty of highlights. I'd say some of the most immediate ones. Obviously, Wonderful is the top 5 single. I want to say this had basically over 100 million plays on Spotify. Yeah, it had 120 million plays on Spotify. New York is obviously like it's career highlight for Ja Rule. New York's a pretty good career highlight for Ja Rule. Never Thought is another good career highlight for Ja Rule. Some of these type ones just have an excellent type fashion about it. There's plenty of good summer fried type ones like The Manual, Life Goes On, and like What's My Name, Where I'm From, some of these type pitches. It's just good type tone for a lot of these on here. It's a good day shift type fashions, a little bit of makeshift on here, a little bit of just summer frolic, some Tupac kind of thug life type appeal within rumination type factors. So it's good type tones. I mean, it would have been interesting to have gotten some more songs like New York, About My Business, that just attempt like the DMX kind of city hop within the fashion, just bringing more of like that Tupac kind of paranoia to like a New York type fashion, but it doesn't really attempt at that full bound Then some of the songs, like I was saying, that had the fashion just being more city hops or just more New York kind of thug flavor, just didn't really nail the appeal. So this was kind of the concept, just felt more sketchy and just not as hitting. But yeah, so 8.5 out of 10. So the social score I'll probably give probably like a 9.25 out of 10. I think the social score just nails a little bit better. Now it can't get like it doesn't get as much of a full bound kind of classic score because I realized that Ja Rule is kind of shunned because of the 50 Cent beef, and I think folks were just kind of questioning. I mean, he did have his base, but it's just kind of the concept of starting to dwindle around this particular time. Just not as huge as it was like 2001. 2002, some of those type fairs. But like I said, this is like a good stretch of one. This not necessarily end of an era, but just from the pitch, it just like one of the gap. It's not to say this is this full bound like end of an era, but it's just from the pitch that it's just probably. It's not to say that this is full bound kind of an end of an era, but it's just too bad that there weren't more albums like this 2006, 2007, some of that type fair. Really question what happened to the Mirror album, the songs that he was working on with Lil Wayne, some of those type fashions. But just from the pitch, the 9.25 social. In terms of the future, like Ja Rule, like I was saying, has not been around since possibly 2012. Now, I haven't actually touched base with Ja Rule in quite some time, since probably about the 2010s, mid 2010s, something like that. So I'm guessing that he might have put out another album since at least 2012. That's 13, 14 years ago. But just looking at the fashion as far as saying within the pitch behind it, I just would have to say there is plenty more of these. I'm definitely going to start reviewing some Prime America and Ja Rule than some of those type fairs. But just in the pitch as far as saying this is a better album than it isn't. Basic kind of arguable classic post the 50 Cent beef that just nailed a lot of things. Good type fair for that. So good stuff.